is you have your cutoff there, but with a single click you get a beam much higher. It's gonna turn on, it's gonna start charging. You don't know the difference, you don't have to know the difference, you want to actually explode. So they all look the same, but they are not the same. Regular USB-C standards, eh? Hi, this is Nicole from Dog Custom, and in this video I'm going to talk about my latest product, Terra, which is a Dynamo powered headlight with cutoff beam as well as high beam function, internal buffer battery, and possibility to charge devices via USB-C, as well as recharging or running the lights for my USB-C power bank. This video should serve kind of like an instruction manual or how you can get the most out of your Terra. So stick around and we're going to get into all the details. So first, a little bit of a background, what are Dynamos and what do they do? So they're also known as generators. They're like this one, they go in your front wheel, just like the generators in a nuclear power plant that powers everything in this shop and in this house. This one spins, same principle, and it generates electricity. Usually they used to run lights, so for the longest time they were used to run lights, but nowadays we have like a phone or a GPS that we carry around when we ride, so we already have a power source on our bikes, so like this one. So how can we use it to charge device? Again, this is a very brief overview. I have more detailed videos on Dynamos and what they can and what they can do. There'll be links in the description as well as a card up there. You're wondering, I mean, what's so much better the Dynamo compared to my USB charge lights and all that. I hear you, but Dynamo is always there and it is simply reliable. You always have lights at the flick of a switch, while batteries you have to charge the front, you have to charge the rear, etc. You have to stay on top of them, and batteries tend to go flat on you in weird weather conditions when you... Let me flip the camera and get into the details of Terra. So here we are on my bench. So what is in the box? It comes in a box like this one, says Purple Dog. Then what is in the box? So you have your light Terra, either upside down, this is upside down, or regular orientation. You cannot do it like this. There's a way to switch the orientation yourself, usually if you switch bikes, etc. But due to the symmetric beam, you can't just physically flip it like this. We're gonna get into this later in the video. So what's in the box? You get a remote control button plus turbo rings, they're not here, and a Dynamo cable connecting it to your bike. Either a standard mount, 10mm mount like this one, or a GoPro style mount. This is actually new because especially if you run it upside down, usually on the Garmin mount, you need an adapter when you use this one. But this one is a bit more compact, and this is available either separately or at a discount if you order it together with the light. But let's say you order the standard mount 10mm like this. This fits most mounts out there that are for lights. There is no mount included in the box, but pretty much anything out there would work. If you have a setup or a custom setup, do not hesitate to reach because I do quite some custom setups for people, and this is how I developed this the GoPro style mount. So, and again, there's orientation. This is my own one, upside down. This is where the rear light connector is. That's how you know. This is basically how it sits on the bike. Like I said, you can't just physically flip it without changing the optics inside, but we're gonna get to this later in the video. So this is how you attach it to your bike. Then how do you electrically connect it? So you have a male cable, this goes to Dynamo cable right here, and the female to the remote control. This cable is the thicker version, it's about 1 meter. It is fine for most setups, even internal routing, though this exists in a thinner version like this. So if you want for internal routing, etc., you can get this one free of charge, but it's this one. So electrically, for a Dynamo, for Shimano shutter precision, you just cut the insulation, the outside insulation, the black part, then there's like a red and a black cable, doesn't matter which one you put where. You just bare them, put them in this connector block, fold them, connect to Dynamo, and you're fine. If you use a StVZO or Schmidt Dynamo, there's 3 ways to do it. So the first one is the classic way with the spade connectors like this one. I can solder them to you with the heat shrink and everything, and this is free of charge. Again, then you can change the cable length without cutting them. So if you know the cable length, do not hesitate, put it in your order notes or get in touch with me directly. However, in my opinion, this I never really liked. Well, you see that they developed. This is quite flimsy because if you're in the middle of the night, you basically forget to have it now. You take the wheel off and you can leave them out. I mean, once or twice it works, but they're gonna get ripped out and then you're kind of stuck without light in the middle of the night. So there is a better solution which uses the StVZO coaxial system. Actually, I sell quite a bit of this, so that's why I'm a bit out of stock. So I have some odds and ends. So you have an adapter that goes on the flat parts. I will show you a diagram how it works. Like I said, this is what I have left over on, and then use a coaxial connector like this one. Basically, this solders to the end of the cable like this, and this goes inside here, and it is much more durable. It's like in and out. This whole adapter is extra charge, and I can solder it for you without any extra charge for the soldering, because this is not so easy to solder. If you've never soldered, I mean, feel free to learn, but do not start with this. I have experience doing it. It takes some skill and a fixture, not necessarily the same fixture, but you need some kind of fixturing to do it. So this is pretty okay, it works for most setups. Again, this is bigger than this connector here. Sometimes it doesn't fit internally, so you have to solder it off, etc. I mean, let me know about your setup. I do quite some custom setups, and we can find a solution that would fit your bike. And the third option for Schmidt is custom. It is called Zone SL or Steckerlos or connectorless. It uses a dynamo like this one. As you can see, no connector anywhere to be found because it uses the fork. And there's a fork. Actually, I can make your fork if you want, because I started in the whole thing. It's custom bike, so there's the fork. It uses a special contact plate here, and then it uses the other leg as a contact part, and it is a very clean looking system. Again, if you have the system, you know you have it. If you're getting a custom bike, I strongly recommend the system. I'm not very aware if there's any custom carbon forks. I know there's a titanium from Firefly, but this is quite clean and quite neat, and all my bikes that I've made for myself use, because I also make custom bikes, use this system. It is kind of nice, though. Again, this is custom. I can make you a steel fork at a very reasonable price. There you go. This cable goes to Dynamo to power. Then this goes to the remote control, and you have a rear light connection there. I mean, I'm going to show you with my teeny rear light here. It uses a standard 3.5mm biojack, either so this or pre-soldered cable, or if you buy a light from me. Again, we can customize the custom length. This goes straight in here, and there's your USB-C port behind the cover for charging devices or recharging the light. I'm going to plug everything into my shop setup so I can start going over the features. But basically, if you take it out of the box, it would look something like this. I can attach to a bike. So now I have everything plugged in here on my lap power supply and all that for the purpose of this demonstration. So like I showed you, everything is connected, the rear light there. So let me start going over the features. Yeah, first of all, the LED ring, as you can see right now, it is orange. This means the internal battery is recharging, and this is your indication that everything is working. Once it's full, it would become green. And lithium-ion batteries charge very slowly when they're above 80%. So even if you're at 99%, it's still gonna stay orange. I was gonna remove this feature and just keep it green all the time, but since you can recharge it from the USB-C port, kind of like if you leave it somewhere, you know when it's charged. Otherwise, people get a bit anxious if whether it's working or not. Fear not, there's a lithium-ion management circuit inside that keeps the battery in its perfect health and all that, so there's nothing to worry about. But it requires some steady riding to get it to 100% because the battery takes up the slack when you go slow, etc., and you don't realize when you go into this. So right now it is orange, and this is fine. Like I said, it would eventually become green. As far as control goes, I try to keep it pretty simple. So long press turns it completely on and off. One click turns on the high beam on and off, and double click changes the intensity, and the intensity change is applicable whether you have the high beam on or off. I'm going to show you what I mean. Let's turn it on, long press, and there you go. There are three modes. It starts on medium. Let me start going. So double click, you go to full power and to low, and one click you get high beam. And let me show that the dimming works both with the high beam. Double click, as you can see, both beams change. You can get out of it, and again, no matter which mode you're in, long press switches it on and off. Again, I try to keep it very simple. And the rear light switches off as well. So what's so special and what makes it better than the rest? And for me, the most important part is the power flow control inside, which I call StVZO. This is currently on its second generation. The first generation was in my previous product, which is still available, the Stalker. So basically, because it has a buffer battery inside, it can do a bunch of interesting things. So the most obvious one is basically when you stop, the light stays on. So let me switch it off. There you go. I switched it off. As you can see, the LED is not on, so it is off. And as you see, everything works. Absolutely everything works. Rear light stays on and all that. Again, this is nothing super new. I mean, Stumiacha did this back in the day with their dyno hubs, and they had this dry battery unit that would automatically turn on when you stopped. I'm still curious how they did it without any semiconductors, but this is one feature of it. The second feature is that StVZO prioritizes everything. Let me plug it back in. prioritizes everything that is currently running. So it prioritizes the LEDs, the USB port, the rear light, and anything extra gets stored in the battery, especially at low speeds, because Dynamo lights flicker, and at low speeds it switches automatically to the battery, so it doesn't flicker. And just like I showed you, when you stop, you do not lose light, of course, within the limits of the buffer battery and the dynamos. However, in most riding, everything is designed to work like this. Also, because of this, it can redistribute power, and you can have high beam even at low speed. Currently, there is no bicycle light that does that. I mean, the ones that have high beam, you have a limited high beam for about half an hour, or you have to be going very fast, while this one is available at low speeds. And actually the real innovative part, and again, this is the generation 2 of StVZO, the real innovative part, and currently there is nothing else out there in the bicycle world that does this, is that in really high power needs, basically you want full power in the lights, you want something to charge on the USB port, and you're not going very fast, or even if you're going fast, you want a lot of power. StVZO can combine the dynamo and the battery into a total of about, I think it's about 12 watts, which nothing out there does that. Again, this is available at all speeds. Again, this is within the limits of a dynamo and the buffer battery, but everything, this is when you design a power supply, because this is a power supply of sorts, you kind of design things so in most normal riding this should be perfectly usable. And another feature is that it is future-proof, because it is StVZO. The electronics control actually makes it very suitable for 3-watt dynamos. However, because of the power of our control, it can take more power if it's available, and I'm working on another project called Project X. It's a more powerful dynamo that I'm working in cooperation with Son or Schmidt. I have more videos about it card over there, I think, about the details. So this is fully capable of taking all the power, and this is what I write. Again, works perfectly fine with 2-watt dynamos, again with the limits, but with much more powerful dynamo. Basically, you use the battery less and less. It makes it future-proof, and this is one of the features of StVZO. The other feature, which is quite nice, is the so-called StVZO cutoff beam, and you can see it here quite well. It's very easy to see here with the squares. You don't blind oncoming traffic. You don't want to be the asshole with the Brazilian lumen headlight blinding everybody else. For example, the Sinewave beacon, it is extremely bright and blinds even during the day, and other alternatives with simple rod beams are simply not so nice to others in traffic. And another feature of the StVZO style beam that gets missed quite often, and I talk about it in pretty much all the videos, is so-called throw. And what do I mean by this? The StVZO, its lights are checked on a white wall that is 10 meters away, which is quite far. Basically, there are certain zones that they have to, let's see, you can see our boss diagram. There are certain zones that they need to respect, and 10 meters is quite far, and because of that, it has a superior throw, and this is very easy to see here. Well, on top is like a simple, even though this is an oval beam, so it has a sort of a cutoff. Let me show you. You can see it's oval, so it has a sort of a cutoff, but it's a relatively simple beam, and you can see it right there with the squares. This one is going significantly further than this one, and even though this is on low, so still a couple hundred lumens, you can see it's very obvious with the squares how often it is. Again, you're gonna argue, well, this is much brighter than this, but if this gets brighter, basically the top one, basically it gets brighter in front of you. Like the distribution doesn't change, and your eyes naturally focus to the brighter part. You outturn your beam. I mean, about 15 kilometers an hour, even about 12. You're going faster and descending fast. It's almost impossible with this one, and I know this from experience. So this is another feature of the StVZO style cutoff beam that I think gets missed quite a bit. That is quite nice, and it's very obvious, and it's a night and day difference, pun intended, when you're comparing it to simple round optics. And while we are still on the subject of beams, Terra is actually kind of like it is the third product I released, but the very first one, Companion, had an option called Clarity, which used a LED that is a bit more yellow, but it had almost no color distortion. So it is very nice, and it's very less fatiguing to the eyes, because, for example, automotive white is this very harsh blue light. It's always a question of quality versus quantity, and in the Clarity version, this is my own one, I ride it with Clarity, you lose about 25%, but that's why you have the intensity mode, so you still have plenty of light. But the Terra comes in the Clarity option, where the mount is blue to signify that, and it's about 5000K and more than 90% color rendering index, while The standard version 5700, which is automotive white, it has basically the minimum color rating, but it has much higher output. Again, this is my own one. This is what I like to write, and some people request it, and they seem quite happy about it. If total power is your requirement, don't get the clarity, get the regular. Another feature of the beams is usually called high beam, or in my case I call it Farsight, is you have your cutoff there, but with a single click you get a beam much higher and you can see much further, and it's quite nice when you're riding off-road or in forests where you'll be blinding traffic. Don't do that. And again, the dimming works in no matter which mode you are. So now we're in medium or low. There you go. As you can see, the dimming works the same. This is quite nice to have, and again with a single click turn it on and off, so even if there's a car coming and you're riding like this, with a single click turn it. It's very nice for descending and for riding in off-road, because StVZO only beams give you this a bit like this box feeling, that is like a box of light. It's very difficult to describe, but with the high beam it's much nicer to ride around. And also this beam is significantly wider than your typical lights like Ladelux or the Ladelux or supernova lights. And actually the most significant development of Terra compared to my other products, the Companion and the Stalker, is that the USB-C port in the back is bidirectional, which means you can both recharge devices like your Garmin or your phone, or you can charge the light, or for example if you're going very, very slow, or like backpacking, hiker bike section, you can plug in a power bank and run the light like this, or you can use it on a bike without a Dynamo, because on low it lasts about 7 hours. Again with the high beam it changes. So let me show you what I mean. So this is my phone charger. I'm going to plug a USB-C cable. I'm going to disconnect, you're going to see it now go off. I'm going to disconnect the power supply, plug in my phone charger, and you're going to see now it's going to turn on. There you go. It's orange now and everything works just as if it's running from a Dynamo. So this is the input, and now let me show you what's going to happen. So these are my headphones here. I'm going to unplug it. As you can see, the LED goes off, and now it's going to start charging my headphones. Again, you can plug in other things, but this is basically one of the biggest change compared to my other products. The USB-C port is bidirectional. We are still on the USB-C port. Let's charge something. I'm going to charge my old phone, the one I used in the previous videos, because, well, keep things consistent. In any case, I'm controlling the camera with this one, so I put an adapter because it's an old phone. It's a micro USB, so let's plug it in and see where we are at. There you go, it turns on. I think it's about 50%. Yeah, 49. So I'm gonna put this to the side. As you can see, lights and charge work. So I'm gonna plug it back in. There you go, LED is on. So basically as if you're riding. I'm gonna put this away. I'm gonna talk to the question that you probably most of you have. Would you charge my phone? Would you charge my GPS, etc, etc? For that I need to put this away and get a sheet of paper. Here we are to answer your question. Would Terra charge my device, my phone, etc? And the short answer is it should. The long answer is, well, it depends on your device, like what are you charging and why is that. So let me show you. So I have two adapters. This is a very old one, 5 volts, 1 ampere, so a 5 watt, and this is an Apple 30 watt power delivery charger. Obviously, you know, by looking at them, you don't know the difference. You don't have to know the difference. You want to be able to just plug in anything and it should work. And that's where we get into standards. So your device, your phone, your GPS, whatever you're charging, has one of these little guys inside. This is a lithium-ion charger or management chip, and there's a very stringent protocol on how lithium-ion batteries need to be charged, because if you don't respect it, they actually explode, or at the very least they heat up, and I'm not kidding. So most things have this, and this respects everything. So this is either stupid, like it's pre-programmed, or it's has some kind of logic and smart, and basically can distinguish between this and that. And also these two also have a way to communicate with this little guy. And even the most stupid ones, they have a way of determining what is connected to them, so they don't overload it. Because, you know, if basically if you ask, this is a 30 watt adapter, and if you ask 30 watts after this one, this is going to last up exactly 2.5 seconds and it's go in a puff of smoke. And this one still works even with my new phone, which is quite large and power hungry, and this one works. Obviously this one works slower, this one works faster. So this is why we get into standards. There's a standard how those things interact, and respecting or non-respecting of those standards is a continuous headache for someone who makes chargers. So let me explain. I'm going to talk about USB-C because it is the current standard, and although the principles remain the same. So Basically, if you look at it, they all look the same, but they are not the same. So from left to right, basically from low power to very high power. So let me start explaining. Again, this is going to get a bit geeky, but I'm going to try to keep it simple. So you have a device that looks like this, looks like USB-C. No problem there, right? Well, you're incorrect, because it looks like USB-C, but then it does not support the USB-C specification. What is the USB-C specification? It is what I call light reading of a couple hundred pages of dry standards and how things should react. Basically what I showed you, how a charger should react and what should happen. Again, if you want some light reading, it's publicly available. Knock yourself out. So the point is, whether this doesn't respect the specification, basically if you plug in a USB-C cable, I don't know if you see this one, a USB-C cable, nothing's gonna happen. So in any case, this usually takes only 5 volts, and it's unknown. It takes either half or 1.5 amperes, so 2.5 watts to 7.5. 2.5 is in orange, remember this. So basically this looks like USB-C, but it does not work with USB-C because it does not respect the USB-C specification. So how do you go about this? This is your old USB-A or legacy. It's a cable. Let me see if I have a cable like this around. So, or an adapter. Actually, I have an adapter. Here, one USB-A, USB-C on the other. Basically, the USB-C specification has provision for old adapters, because you're not gonna just like throw your old adapters out. So when he sees something that has USB-A on it, he's gonna say, okay, you're an old adapter, so you're gonna give me 5 volts and either 2.5 and 7.5 watts. So basically, if you have, and I have a bunch of children's toys here, that they come with USB-C to USB-A cable, with a regular USB-C or in a USB-C only charger, they do not charge, but with an adapter or with a cable like this, they do charge. And again, it's 5 volts, either 2.5 and 7.5 watts. Again, remember the 2.5, we're gonna get to this. And this kind of always works, because basically this is your old friend that you always invite to the party, that kind of stuff. So it's part of the USB specification. If you're seeing something old, basically it should always work, but with some limitations. Again, remember the 2.5 watts. And now we get to USB-C. This is where there's actually a communication happening between your device and the charger. Again, it's 5 volts, and it comes basically this, the charger tells to the device, well, I can either give you one of 3 things: default, medium, or high. Default is either 2.5, again 2.5, remember that number, or 4.5 watts. Medium is 7.5 and high is 15 watts. Terra is advertising either default or medium, depends when you watch this. If you connect the USB-C device, it's gonna say, okay, you can offer me this, I will take this without, killing you. And this is all fine, and like I said, Terra respects that. And again, they all look the same. And now we get to something which a lot of people associate with USB-C, and they think basically all USB-C is super high power. But like I showed you, USB-C supports anything up to the lowest USB standard, like 2.5 watts, as you can see. USB power delivery is in a league of its own, so that's why it's to the right. But basically, those chips that I showed you, they are usually hard-coded to work at 2.5 watts. Usually, because sometimes, basically 2.5 watts is important because this determines how it would work with a weak power supply, and some things are simply programmed to never work with anything like this. So this is what I mean, is it gonna work with my device? Basically, your device needs to support, well, actually not this part here, needs to support any of that. Basically, for example, my headphones, they charge at 1.5 watts, so they're even below default. But this is all done in order to not fight things and burn down your house. Again, I'm being over dramatic. This is how things work. And more and more, there's actually 2 things that I have seen, that these charging chips usually take what the adapter can give you. They monitor it and they say, oh, how much you can give me before I kill you, and they charge with this. However, some manufacturers, like I said, for example, my phone, it's a very big iPhone, would not charge in a 2.5 watt adapter, I'm pretty sure. It's not in the specification, so some devices would simply refuse to charge. And maybe they don't even support USB-C, so this communication here, it means nothing to them, so they refuse to charge. Or they only support USB-C power delivery, and this is where we get to USB-C power delivery. So most people, when they see USB-C, they think like fast charge or anything like this. However, it's not as simple. Like I mentioned, USB-C is your garden variety 5 volts, and it can go up to 3 ampere or 15 watts. However, if you need more than 5 volts or more than 3 amperes, so more higher power, you get into USB-C power delivery. And this is where really there has to be a significant handshake. There's like special chips that's all they do is this type of handshake between an adapter like this one. it decides. So basically it advertises, you know, 5, 9, 15, 20 volts. I think it says it somewhere here. And what kind of current. And basically the device says, well, I can pick this. For example, with my phone, it can work happily with an adapter like this 5 watts, but if it sees something like this, it will charge at 25 watts. This is a bit where the problems start to happen. Usually things should be back compatible this way. However, they are not. And the perfect example is my iPhone wireless charger here. It only works with USB-C power delivery power brick. So for example, this one, and I'm going to show you later, this charger does not work with Terra. Basically, it only works with the power delivery adapter. It does not respect USB-C, even though it should. However, and this is where things get interesting. Before I got this, it was a new phone for me, so I decided to buy a wireless charger because I never had a phone with wireless charger. I bought this, and this looks very similar to the Apple one. Obviously, I didn't know, and it was not charging very fast. And I was like, really? What's the big deal about fast charging? So then I read a bit, and turned out this one's a fake. I went to the Apple store, bought this one, and the first question they asked me, do you have a 30-watt adapter like this one? I said, yes. Okay, then it would work. So actually, they knew about it. You have standards, and the device that you are charging, your phone, your GPS, needs to respect them, or has decided, pick and chose what it respects, or doesn't even. The people who designed it didn't even know. I suspect the ones who just put USB-C port without respecting the specification just thought, okay, well, we need a USB-C port. How difficult can it be? A recommendation is basically, if you get something from me, test it with, if you're gonna take a big trip, test it with what you're gonna do. I mean, I can only control what is inside my devices. I cannot control what other manufacturers do. Devices out there that do not respect the standards, yes, they all look the same, they all look USB-C, but, you know, I cannot control what's inside your GPS, what's your phone, but Terra in full power can give you about 12, so this is still below the USB-C power delivery. And again, this is made for very big batteries and very fast charging, which basically the Dynamo is not that. And again, why don't they make the Dynamo power delivery? Well, what do you know? This is actually a power delivery circuit that I have, and this is the power delivery chip that I told you, dedicated for this. And why do I have this one? Well, there's this big red button called subscribe. Click and you will see. Again, this is still a prototype stage, but it will be its own ecosystem, and the brains here actually want to support power delivery and everything else down here. So it's going to work with everything, well, pretty much almost everything out there, from very old adapters to USB-C power delivery. But again, big red button, click on it and you see what happens. And some bonus content, what I wanted to show you, that, you know, some things work power delivery only, even though this supports USB-C. So this is my Apple charger. Let me put this one away. So this is the one from Apple. Let me put it to my phone. So I plug it in Terra. There's my phone. See, nothing's going to happen now. Oops. See, nothing happens. Even though this is USB-C, this supports power delivery only. So let's plug in the fake one. There you go. And now, as you see, it charges. Standards, eh? Of course, you know, it's going to work with regular wired USB-C, which is, like I said, this supports the most standards. So it goes all the way down to 5 watts. So there you go, my phone, regular USB-C. There you go. Standards, what can you do? And basically, while I've been talking about all this and probably boring you to death, I have had my Terra charging my old phone here, and you can see it started at 49, where we're now at 73, so in about half an hour it charged, what is that, 14%, something like this, and it's still, everything is on, light is on, rear light is on. It's a bit warm, but again, when you're riding, that shouldn't be a problem. What you might want to do with your Terra, there's two things that you might want to do. One is replace the internal battery, because lithium-ion batteries quickly age. I mean, there's plenty of electronics that protect it inside, but again, there's natural aging. And the other thing is flipping the orientation. Like this one is upside down, as you can see, the rear light connection. This one upside down, so if you change bikes, put tire bars, that kind of stuff, you might want to change the orientation, because you can't just flip it. The process is very similar how it's done, so I'm going to do it in one step. Usually I did it in two. What you need gloves, so you don't get any smudges on the optics. There's thermal grease inside, nothing toxic, but again, it gets everywhere. Microfiber cloth to wipe the thermal grease and any smudges from the optics, and your remote control, because the light would reset once you disconnect the battery. You don't need any special tools, and to change the battery there's no soldering required. So let me get into it, but before we get into it, let me show you something. So basically the optics, due to the symmetric beam and the high beam and all that, they have these facets, so you can see. like this. There's this 3 feet kind of inside, and this is the top. In this case, it matches the mount and rear light connection. Because this is mine, this is upside down. So when you open it, always hold things and you don't let things twist. So this is the very important thing, because you're going to rip connectors, and this is not covered by warranty. Again, take your time, it's not too difficult. And the second thing is, before you tighten everything, make sure the optics are in the middle, because they are symmetric, so they need to sit in the middle to make sure it's all waterproof. So I'll show you, but this is something to keep in mind. Don't get everything tightened and try to force things. Again, don't force things, take your time, and it should be pretty okay. So let's get on with it. So to take it off, there's 3 parts: front, middle, and back. So we're gonna take the cap off, then we're gonna screw the middle, and then take the electronics out and do what we have to do. So with the gloves, you also get a bit of a grip, so you hold it like this. Hold the optics. At the beginning, it might be a bit tight. So you hold them with your thumb and you start twisting, and the cap should come out. There you go. There's rubbering, so you feel some resistance. Also, the optics have a rubbering. You can take it off. I'll show you how to put it back on. Make sure there's no dust or any kind of debris on it, because it won't be waterproof. So we're gonna take it off so it doesn't fly out. There's a way to put it, I'll show you, so nothing too crazy. Keep the optics in, but I'm gonna take them off to show you what I mean. So there's the LED matrix inside. As you can see, this hole is kind of parallel to the LEDs, these yellow things. So this is the top always, and the optics have a top, like the facets run parallel to this. So hold the optics in, like hold the top, so you don't put any smudges, and then you start unscrewing everything. Again, by holding the optics, you make sure nothing twists. Again,
the fine thread is gonna come off. There you go.
Take the optics out, put them to the side, and there you go. That's the thermal grease, this great thing. Depends how much yours has worked, etc. It might be a bit stuck because of all the rubber rings, but you push everything, and yeah, that's why you need the remote, because as soon as things start touching, etc., it's resetting. So you push everything out. So there you go. If you're just changing the orientation, basically like I showed you, this matches this. So if you're gonna put it to regular or vice versa, you do this and you put it back in. So this is mine. I'm gonna keep it upside down, and I'm gonna show you how to change the battery. So the cables, start pushing the cables. You can see the battery plus is that way. Again, there's reverse battery protection, so basically it won't do this. So you push the cables a bit out. Again, I'm getting thermal grease everywhere. So you start pushing the cables. As you can see, everything comes out. Then you keep going, and there's your battery right there. Take it out, put a new one in. Again, plus is that way. Yeah, pull the cables again. If it's been working, everything is nicely settled in. There you go. Well, let's get this rubbering here. Let's get rid of some of the thermal grease, and you put it back in. Like, again, this is mine, so I'm gonna try it. I'll keep it upside down because that's how I ride it. I try to get it as as straight as possible, so the mount matches the rear light connection. Don't look at the LEDs. There you go. Try to get everything pretty much aligned. It is normal that it does that, because it basically resets. So put this in. I'll switch it off. No long press. And put the optics back in correct way. So the top is there, so then nothing twists. And try to keep everything in the middle. Let's see, it's a fine thread. And you can see it is almost in the middle. There you go. And try to eyeball it. I mean, there's definitely some. Keep it a bit to that side, because as you start tightening it, it would start to want to twist. Again, you can check now if it's in the middle. Yeah, seems pretty okay. So hold it quite. You can press on it. Try to tighten it. So let's hope we got it in. And now how to put the rubber ring back on. Well, make sure it's clean. If you have some grease, you can put some on it. But put your thumb on the side, like this, and then gently pull it on. Don't try to roll it, because it's gonna roll. And there you go. And then you put the cap, and you can screw it nicely before you start hold the optics. At some point, you're gonna start fitting the rubber rings.
See, it's nice in the middle, goes in.
There you go, the rubber rings. I'm starting to feel them. Then you go tighten it, it's a bit to that side like I told you, and then final, like 1/10 of a turn, and there you go. Clean the thermal grease from your hands, from the housing. Actually, if you have a matte housing, you put some oil on it, and that kind of dissolves the grease, and then use a microfiber cloth to remove it. I don't know why it works like this, probably someone in the comments can tell me, but that's how it does it. And as you can see, the gaps are kind of the same. They should not be very big. I mean, the middle one might be a bit larger than the other, depends which version of the housing you have. But there should not be any big gaps in order to close the rubber rings to keep it waterproof. Again, make sure everything works. There you go, high beam, dimming. And there you go, that's how you either change the battery or flip the orientation or both of your Terra. So this is kind of like the final section, an FAQ of sorts regarding Terra, and let's get onto it. So your first question is, my Terra is not working or it's doing weird things, and from my experience, because this is actually the third product I have, it is always something to do with the cabling. 99% is something wrong with the cable. Either you didn't connect it or there's a loose connection somewhere. Especially sometimes, as much as I like the Son coaxial Dynamo adapter, I have had 3 or at least 2 for sure clients that had it some corrosion, water got in, and basically it lost contact, or it was shorting there but it was not providing power to the light. I had also one client who managed to break the golden part of the connector. So basically, if it starts acting funny and you can't do much about it, this means it's not receiving power and it's going to reset. Check the cables, most notably the power connection. And you know, the 1% is something force majeure has happened. How waterproof is it? It is pretty waterproof. It has multiple water seals. I mean, I've improved it over the years based on customer feedback. The USB-C has a rubber cap there, I don't know what you can see, and actually it's not live if you don't have anything connected to it, so I strongly suggest not to have a cable, especially one of those USB-C to the old USB adapters, because that way it turns on, but otherwise it's not on, so it's gonna get, even if it gets water inside, it will be fine. But again, common sense, because it's still an open port, and you know, rain varies from a small drizzle to tropical typhoon, so use some common sense. Is it compatible with my Dynamo? Like I explained, because of the electronics control inside, it is compatible with all 3-watt Dynamos there, and wire Dynamos 3 watts, again I have a whole series about that. But because of the electronics, these are products currently out there, it is compatible with more powerful Dynamos like Project X. Again, I have more descriptions about this. It's not compatible with bottled Dynamos. Basically the electronics, the Dynamo spin too fast and electronics cannot keep up with it. But they're not really popular, so again I never tried to optimize it. Again, I could, since Hub Dynamos represent 99.9% of the Dynamos out there. There's low power Dynamos like 1.5 watts, those are not recommended. It will work, but again you'll be running off the battery a lot of the time, so you might not get the optimal experience. Again, the electronics will adjust, that's not a problem, but I do not recommend low power 1.5 watt Dynamo. So your garden variety 2 watt Dynamo, this is a Son, Shimano, they all should work shutter precision as well. Another question you might have, would it charge my phone? Would it charge my GPS of brand X, my phone of model Y and all that? And like I have a much bigger section actually explaining all of this. So in theory, yes, because Terra supports the USB-C either default or medium current. What does that mean? If it is Chinese, again, go watch the section. But this supports that standard. So if the other manufacturers support that standard, which is an international standard, it should work. Though I have not tested everything, that's why the standard. So again, if you're going to take a very long trip, don't put this the night before. I mean, you have to test a bit, like anything. Some things work better than others. So what would happen, because this port is a dual row, and what would happen if you connect to another device that also has a dual row port? This again comes down to standards and it depends. So basically this by default state is a consumer, and there's not really any smart things about it. It is always a consumer. So if the other one doesn't care, it is gonna charge, it is gonna give power to Terra. While, you know, if you have a power bank, because a lot of power banks now have a dual row port, usually you can configure it. Usually they have either an output or an input, but again it depends on your other device. Again, this sounds like a cop-out, but I can only guarantee what is in here. I can control what is in here. I cannot control what other manufacturers do. So in this by default is a consumer. So usually if it sees another dual row device, it would consume power. Although my phone here by default charges. Basically this gives power to the phone, while the phone can charge my headphones, for example. my headphones or my watch. So again, it all depends. In the previous section, if you're gonna take on a very big trip, test things before. A question you might have, because the USB-C port is bidirectional, if you're going slow, would it start actually discharging what you're charging? And the answer is no, because while the USB-C protocol supports the bidirectional power flow, that does not mean that every device takes advantage of this. Because this usually adds complexity and or expense. So most devices out there are either chargers or they get recharged. They don't do both. And the ones that do both, like I said, usually play very well with Terra. They accept the role that they should. Trio lights are compatible with Terra pretty much with all my devices ever since the beginning. They use a standard 3.5mm jack there. I sell the cable, or only the jack if you want to do the soldering yourself, or on all my lights like this. Basically it's limited to about 2.5 watts, so pretty much all Dynamo lights that I'm aware of would work. High power e-bike lights will not work. The warranty, basically the battery is limited to 2 years, but you can change it yourself. I sell the battery and all that. Other things, I mean, I will repair it for the first thing. You send it to me, I send it back to you. If you have further problems, I'll send you a return label or reimburse you shipping. You send it to me, I repair it and send it back. Everything is fully repairable. I keep all parts in stock. Pretty proud how modular I made it, but usually it is not a problem. But again, warranty on the battery is 2 years. Total warranty about manufacturing is also 2. But if you have problems after that, get in touch with me. Even if it's a discontinued model and I have updated ones, I will get you sorted out. Terra is really that you basically either have left something to charge or you simply have not used it for like half a year because you know you ride only in the summer and all that. And that's the beauty of it. You can recharge it with your regular phone charger, USB-C right there from the back, or just go for a ride. If the battery is really dead, because you know there's still some small standby consumption, if it's really dead, don't try to do anything too crazy like high beam charge and all that kind of stuff for the first half an hour, because the battery needs to wake up. But besides that, yeah, the easiest thing is just connect it via USB-C or go for a half an hour ride. You need to be going about 15 kilometers an hour faster. You need to charge it below that, but again, don't do anything crazy as far as power. So that pretty much concludes all the frequently asked questions. That's why they call frequently. If you have any other question, do not hesitate to put it in the comment. There's contact links to my website. Again, Terra is available on my website or via email. Depends when you watch this. There might be some updates on new products. But again, at the time of publishing of this video, Terra is available. And I want to thank you for watching and thank you for your interest in my products, and I'll be back, so please subscribe.